Some more information now on what this means from Karina Gould. She's Canada's Social Development Minister. Hi, Minister. Good to have you with us.
Hi, Vassy. Glad to be here.
Here in studio. I wanted to start off actually on dental care.
Yeah.
It's obviously a hot political issue because it was part of the confidence and supply agreement. I wanted to ask you very bluntly if dental care to this degree would have been in this budget if it were not a precondition to your government staying in power.
Well, it's a good question, but it's something that is in this budget, and it's something that's helping lots of families already across the country. So 240,000 children have already accessed dental care because of the announcement that we made in December of 2022. And by the end of this year, that's going to be children under the age of 18, persons with disabilities, and seniors. We're going to be working on rolling that out across the country. So this is huge. This is, a really big initiative that our government is putting forward. And, I think as Minister Freeland said in her budget speech yesterday, what's really exciting about this is we won't be able to determine someone's income based on their smile. And, we know that dental care is fundamental for our overall health care. So I think this is a really important initiative. And by 2025, it could help up to 9 million Canadians.
And I certainly get the merits of what it does, right? And the people who it will help. I guess I'm asking against the backdrop, though, of a lot of other kind of spending pulls that you had pulling at you. And the fact that going into this, we were told there would be a lot of fiscal restraint exercise, and there's still a lot of spending. And so I remember even asking Mr. Singh yesterday, was there a conversation had about maybe delaying this? Because it's not just $7 billion anymore, it's $13 billion over 5 years. Was there a thought to delaying it, or was that kind of dismissed in the name of political expediency from your government's perspective?
Well, we made a commitment with the NDP through the Supply and Confidence Agreement that we would stick to this timeline, and we are sticking to it. And,
is that responsible fiscally, though? Basically, doing something to stay in power?
Well, no, it's a commitment that was made, based on this agreement. But I think the results speak for themselves. Like 240,000 children have now been able to access the dentist when they weren't able to before. And so there was a need, and we are delivering on this. And I think what's really important about the dental care initiative is that it's targeted, right? So it helps those who need it. It's for household incomes of $90,000 a year or less. And the other part of it that is important is it's not inflationary, because it's, not additional spending that families are doing. It's things that they need to do, and so it's not an inflationary measure.
In and of itself is not inflationary, but overall the level of spending in this budget, some economists have already argued today in analyzing it, could be potentially inflationary, especially when you compare it, for example, to spending that happened outside of COVID. So COVID years, fine, they're an anomaly, let's put that aside for a second. But I saw a Scotiabank analysis today that said basically program spending excluding COVID will be 51% bigger by the fiscal year 2027 than it was in the fiscal year of 2019. So that's a huge increase under your government.
Well, we've also seen population growth. I mean, when we look at old age security, for example, there's many more seniors than there were before. There's a reason why government services are expanding. It's because we're seeing an increase to the population in Canada. But one of the things that I would say is really important about this budget is it's a budget that's setting us on our future trajectory. Look, we know that having a clean, green economy is something that is a necessity into the future, but we're also competing with other jurisdictions around the world. I mean, the President of the United States was here on Friday talking about the importance of a clean and green economy and the Inflation Reduction Act in the United States. Now, we've had, almost 8 years in terms of making important investments in a greener future in Canada, but we still need to make sure that we're competing around the world. And what the investments in yesterday's budget on a cleaner environment and a cleaner economy mean is that we're going to continue to have good paying jobs in a variety of industries, whether that's in auto manufacturing, whether it's in mining, whether it's in battery technology, whether it's in clean electricity, that are going to be here in Canada, and that's really important for Canadians.
Yeah, and again, I think I understand why those investments would be necessary, but it sort of, again, I'm not sure I think there is, and I'm still hearing this, a level of concern from Canadians about the ability to do things like that in the future, because there has been a high spending trajectory, again, outside of COVID supports for so long. You're looking at debt servicing costs, for example, that will go up to $50 billion in the next 5 years. So instead of those $50 billion, which I think is about 10% of program spending overall, going towards program spending, going towards the programs that your portfolio oversees, they're going to have to go to paying down the debt. It's like paying, putting that much at 10% of your income to just paying the interest on your credit card. That's not really the most responsible thing for Canadians.
But I would say that confident countries invest in themselves. And if we don't make these investments today, we're going to miss them into the future, because those investments, whether it's the Volkswagen plant in St. Thomas, Ontario, like if they set up south of the border or they set up in another country, they're not coming back here. Right?
And I get that, but we don't even know how much money your government invested in that.
But the point of the matter is that we have to make these investments for our future economy, because otherwise we're gonna miss the boat on it. And I think what's responsible for us as a government is to make sure that we're setting Canada and Canadians up for future success and future prosperity. And now is the time to do this, because we're seeing these investments being made in the United States, in Europe, in Asia, and Canada doesn't exist in a vacuum. We exist within a global environment, and it's a global competition out there for who's going to get these investments, where these jobs are going to take place. And we want to ensure that those good paying, often union jobs are here in Canada, so that we can continue to have strong manufacturing, strong mining, strong clean tech and energy jobs here today and into the future.
And I understand that, but your government keeps talking about the future, a future in which your ability to invest in the kinds of programs that you have identified as priorities will be severely limited because of the spending you've done throughout the past, right? I'm not arguing that all those investments are invalid, but the public service has increased by 28%. Now your government is all of a sudden going to cut across the board 3%. The amount of outsourcing has increased from $8 billion under your time in government to over $21 billion. Now you're going to look to make some cuts there. Again, all of that goes to adding towards a debt that taxpayers, that Canadians have to pay down. And if so much of that money is going towards servicing that debt in the future, our future, those investments that you talked about, is compromised.
Well, I actually disagree with that, because we are making investments that are important for people today. And this is within the context of investments that we've been making over the past 7.5 years. So when we talk about affordability, so we have the grocery rebate that you talked about at the beginning of this segment, but that's in addition to other investments that we've made, like the dental benefit, which is important, but also the Canada Child Benefit. So for our lowest income Canadian families, they could be getting up to $7,000 a year per child under the age of 6. That's hugely important for them. And that lays a foundation.
That's not all you've spent on, right?
No,
There's $50 billion on Arrive can't, you know what I mean?
But it's also, I think it's important to put that into context, because we have done a lot of really big things for Canadians over the last 7.5 years, because we know that this is important to create a more inclusive, more equitable society that is actually going to lead to greater prosperity for all of us. And so these are important investments in our future.
But it's not the sum total of what you're spending, right? There is also a public service that's grown 28%. There is also outsourcing that has increased, $17 billion.
So on the public service, though, it's important to note. So for example, on old age security, like A-level spending was frozen in 2005. Well, the senior population in Canada is much bigger than it was in 2005. So we have to keep up with the needs that Canadians have as well. We are a growing country. We are a country that is bringing in newcomers to Canada, and we want to make sure that we're building this country in which Canadians can thrive. And I really believe that the investments that we're making are helping to set Canadians up for success. I do think they're fiscally responsible. I mean, if you look at
even
the
G7, if you've migrated from your fiscal anchor, I mean, debt to GDP is now going up.
But Vassy, again, we have to look at this within the global context, right? If we look at where we are within the G7, we still have the lowest debt to GDP ratio amongst G7 countries and amongst other AAA rated countries in the world. So
not when you look at debt compared to nominal GDP, we're actually at the top of one of the top countries.
But Canada is doing well. There's a reason why President Biden was here on Friday, why President van der Leyen came here a couple of weeks ago. The world is looking at Canada right now, because I think we are doing something right, and we are setting ourselves up to take advantage of the economy of the future.
Okay, I'm out of time. Thank you very much for your time, Minister. Appreciate it.
My pleasure, Vassy.
Karina Gould is Canada's Minister of Social Development.